Hi, I'm Steve Miletto from the Teaching, Learning, Leading K-12 podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome, everybody, to this episode of the Ninth Grade Experience. I'm your host, Chris Dutchko. Ninth grade can be challenging. Let's experience it together. And on today's episode, it's kind of an interesting flip of the reversal roles here, as during the school year, I had a student in one of my ninth grade classes, Connor Miller, who needed to do a podcasting project. He sat down and he wanted to interview me for a podcasting project. I guess you were supposed to talk to somebody, an expert in the field, and he wanted to reach out and talk to me. So he actually interviewed me and asked me questions about my own ninth grade experience. And he asked me questions about what it was like to do the podcast and other stuff. And we've had this, and I figured it would be kind of an interesting way to kind of kick off and do some stuff here in the summer with a little bit about me. You know, we've now done over 100 episodes of the podcast, and I've kind of here and there talked about my background a little bit, but I've never really gone into great detail about, you know, what I did before teaching, why I do the podcast, and all these other things. And Connor asked some really good questions about all that stuff. So I figured we would save it for the summer, and we would see if it's usable, and which it definitely is. And we're going to go through and we're going to play that now to give you a little bit of a knowledge about me, and, you know, to watch a student interview me and see how this can all work out. So Connor did a really nice job kind of going through and asking, you know, some questions and getting me to talk about some things that I had to really think about myself. I'm usually the one asking all the questions on the podcast. So it was interesting to be able to be on the opposite end of that and needing to come up with the answers as well. So hopefully you learned something a little bit about me as we go through this. I'm excited to, you know, always learn about different people, you know, the people that we interview for the show. So hopefully you are interested in learning a little bit about me as well too. So, you know, hopefully you've been following along with us this summer. You've been seeing the posts that we've been doing on TikTok and YouTube Shorts, and really kind of trying to keep it out there as we kind of start kind of ramping up for the beginning of the school year here. So it's interesting that, you know, summer's flying by here in Pennsylvania. It's been hot and sticky, and, you know, hopefully we'll get into some of that nice fall weather sooner rather than later. But we're still here in the summer. We're producing content, talking to people, getting ready for the upcoming school year. But I figured I'd throw this one in there. So kudos to Connor for doing a great job with this episode here. So if you know him on social media, give him a shout out for this one as well too. And it's, you know, great to be able to share a little bit about me and why I like doing the podcast and why I feel it's so important to focus on the ninth grade year. So take some time out here. You know, hopefully you get to learn a little bit about me and continue to keep having a great rest of your summer, and keep on the lookout for all the content we've been producing and putting up there. So thanks a lot. And here is Connor interviewing me for this episode of the podcast.
When you were in ninth grade, did you find it more harder or easier than middle school?
So when I attended ninth grade, I went to a school with none of my friends. So I was in a small school in Philadelphia, in a small Catholic school, where I graduated. My graduating class had 25 people from 8th grade, actually 22. And I was with those same kids all 8 years of elementary school. So when I went to high school, I went to a school outside of Philadelphia called Holy Ghost Prep. And it was a college prep high school. The academics were more demanding, and I was traveling a little bit away from home. And I didn't have my friends there. So, you know how like a lot of kids come up from middle school and have like their friends that they were with at either I or LMMS. I didn't have that. Nobody from my school went to the same high school I went to. Very few people from the area that I grew up went to that high school. So it was definitely a challenge. The academics were harder, but I was able to transition okay to that high school. I got involved in stuff and did lots of different things. So it was definitely a challenge to be able to start ninth grade at an entirely new school in an entirely new area that I was not, didn't have friends with and didn't have people coming in with.
Now, when you moved to this new school, Did you have a hard time communicating to others?
No, not really, because the school I went to was also small, so there were about 110 freshmen. Let's just say about 110. So my entire school was about 450 kids. So it's definitely a lot different than Emmaus, a lot different than Iron LMMS. It's smaller than both of those schools. It's even smaller than some of your elementary schools here in the district too. So I went in, you were going into this school and you had to take a test to get in, and people were all pretty smart. And I didn't know how smart I was compared to everyone else. So it was a little bit challenging that way. But, like, you find friends and communicate with people, and you learn how to, tell people what you need and those kinds of things. So I didn't really have a problem like communicating with people. I'm sure it was rocky at the first start, but we also did like activities and other stuff to like get to know you. And I was a freshman in 1995. So this was way before, some of the stuff you're doing here in Hornet Huddle and those kinds of things. So a little bit different, but we did lots of activities and orientation activities and stuff too. So I didn't find it to be extremely challenging in order to communicate and kind of find my way.
When you were doing these activities, did you find people who you had stuff in common with?
So yeah, so I joined and I tried to do clubs and activities and things that I kind of knew the people. So in my freshman year, I played basketball. I played for just that 1 year. So obviously that was something that I had in common with those people. And then I got involved in some other stuff as well too. I was looking back at my freshman yearbook. I wasn't in any of the other pictures for any of the organizations, but that's when my curiosity got piqued for like activities like the student newspaper, our community service club, those kinds of things. So I found that like when I got involved in different organizations that you find different people. I also kind of buddied up with people that were kind of from the Philadelphia area. So like my school was like right outside of Philadelphia. So we had kids from like northern, like the suburbs of Philadelphia that came to school. And then we also had some people from Philadelphia. So I kind of more geared up with the people that were from like the northeast part of Philadelphia. So you kind of find those people that you had things in common with.
Now, as you did these challenges, did they ever affect your school? Like when you were doing work and stuff, did you ever get affected by your schoolwork doing these activities?
Not really. Like I was kind of focused on my academics. It was an academic school. So let me see, I have this picture here, because I just took it recently. So sorry, I know this doesn't make for riveting audio content, but let me pull up the picture here because I actually took a picture of my ninth grade transcript from high school. So I am actually looking at it right now. So in the first semester of my freshman year, my grade point average was 3.833, which is pretty good. And I took algebra, biology. We were a religious school, so I took church history, intro to literature and composition, Spanish 1, and world geography, ancient history. So those were my classes in my first part of my year. So I came in and I guess I started off pretty good through the first half of the year. So I was able to kind of hit the ground running with academics, and I was always kind of able to do those things that I needed to do to get work done. So yeah, so it just so happens that I have that. I can't really show it to you on the video because it would be really blurry, but I do have that, and that's what I'm looking at in front of me right now. So, able to kind of jump in and do good stuff. I can't believe I got a B+ in biology though, because I didn't really like biology that much, but I guess I did well enough in it.
Were there any classes you had serious struggles in, like you couldn't keep up with the work, there was too much problems, tests were too often?
Looking at the classes and what I remember from my freshman year, I don't remember very many problems. I came into school in freshman year always getting like the highest grades. So I do see here that I did have some grades that were below an A, which at the time I'm sure I wasn't so happy about. But, looking at it now in the grand scheme of life, it doesn't really, I'm here, I'm teaching, we're good. But I guess my lowest grade of my freshman year was a B in the second half of my world geography ancient history class, which was interesting because the guy that taught it, I believe, was also my freshman basketball coach too. So I don't know, maybe I got a B for a reason. I don't know, but looking at it now, I did pretty well in all my other subjects. So I don't know. I don't remember any real struggles at that early point of my freshman year, kind of going through those different things. I know I did take harder classes moving ahead, and tried to challenge myself in different ways. But freshman year, I think I got off to a pretty good start.
Now, as you were in freshman year, did you have any teachers that like enjoyed doing what they were doing and kind of made it easier for you as a student?
Looking back, I'm looking at the classes now. So I'm trying to remember the ones that I had my freshman year. I believe the person that I had for algebra my freshman year, I think, if I remember this correctly, was the person that later on was like the advisor to the community service corps. That was like the big club that I was the president of and really involved with. And I think that laid the groundwork for that. And then another teacher that I had during that freshman year was Mrs. Posey. She was my English teacher. I'm actually friends with her on Facebook now. So I did pretty well on that one as well, too. So, I'm trying to think back. And then obviously I think my world geography person was my basketball coach. So at least I knew that person as well, too. And again, the school was small. So I think I had some of these people again for later on classes as well, too. But I don't remember like the day to day, like what we did and if they were engaging in the classroom, those kinds of things. But I do just the overall feel of the school was trying to, get you to feel comfortable while also being in that challenging academic environment to be able to, get you ready for college. It was a college preparatory high school. So, yeah, the teachers were all really positive and they encouraged you to get involved with stuff and challenged you academically as well too. That was like the main goal.
Now, as you were doing, like when you were in your ninth grade, have you ever had like a guy who was struggling and you decided to like help out?
Like a student?
Yeah, like a friend.
Um, I don't remember a specific instance of that per se. Like I don't remember like, reaching out to somebody who was maybe struggling. I just know that like, we had our group of friends and, we were all really supportive of each other. I don't remember anything specifically that happened during that year that would have like a crisis situation or anything like that. We did have some of them later on where we had a student that died. I believe he died my junior year, his senior year. And then we had some other, kids get injured and those kinds of things too. But I don't remember anything specifically from my freshman year that was like a situation where I like specifically helped somebody or remember that specific thing. No.
During your schoolwork, have you ever needed a teacher for assistance when you couldn't solve the problem on your own?
Yeah, I think all the time. Like I'm pretty sure, like, because when I went into high school, I was in like the regular Algebra 1 class, and I know that the next year, I doubled up in math because I wanted to be, tried for a higher track in math. So I knew I needed the help there. There were some other classes later on too, to get that extra help and support, and it was kind of built in. Like we had at our school, we had a daily morning meeting. So like it was every day. You got the chance to check in with people. We even had recess too, which I thought was pretty cool. Like in the middle of the day, it was like a 25, 30-minute like break. So like I believe it was like 3 classes and then a recess and then a couple classes and then lunch and then the rest of your day, which I thought was pretty unique for a high school situation to have a recess or a break. But I think also times during that break, you could go and get that extra help as well too. So it was sort of like our Hornet homerooms, but at that point, like people, like I remember playing basketball during the break and like being outside and kind of just maybe not even doing stuff related to academics, but just kind of, I think people were doing stuff related to clubs or activities or like arts and music and those kinds of things as well too. But I can't remember a specific instance of like a specific teacher that like did something very specific for me in my freshman year that kind of led me on a path to somewhere or kind of helped me out in a specific way.
Now, during these recess breaks, have you ever used that time to visually go in to get extra help if you needed to?
It's really like you're asking me to remember all the way back to 1995 and 96. So it's really hard to remember those kinds of things. Maybe I would assume that I did at some point. I don't remember a specific instance that was you can, like you would go in here today. I don't know if there was a specific teacher that we went to all the time. I just remember that we were literally out of the building a lot. We had an outdoor basketball court like right next to our school building. And I just remember being out there or just being in different areas of the building, like in our cafeteria or other spots where we were allowed to go, just kind of interacting with students. But no, I don't really remember anything specific going for help all the time for different things and trying to do that as well. So no, I don't have we encourage students here to do that, but I can't tell you a specific story or instance of that from my freshman year that I remember that this teacher did extra stuff to help me. Maybe they did, but I'm just not remembering it.
Have you ever had tests like midterms or finals to see how well you're doing in the class?
We did. I believe we had midterms and finals. And obviously, as a freshman, that was my first time doing stuff like that. I don't remember there being a ton of extra stuff on it. Like I'm looking at my grades now, obviously, and it's not broken down into anything with a midterm and a final like we do have here where it's different quarters. We did semester grading. So you got a grade for the semester, and that was probably included in the final and those kinds of things as well, too. I do remember that stuff, though. I remember kind of taking those bigger tests, but I think they prepared us pretty well for it and to make sure that we were, knew how to take them. Because obviously the whole point of the school was to get you college ready. So they were preparing you for even down the road of taking things like the PSAT, the SAT, entrance exams, those kinds of things as well too. So they were always kind of preparing for different tests or different outcomes for students. So um, no, the midterm and final thing, I don't remember a specific strategy or they didn't do an assembly with us. Maybe they talked about it during our morning meeting type thing, how to prepare for them a little bit. But at that point, it was just kind of they were brand new to all of us for the most part. So just kind of learning how to take bigger tests that were spread out over a certain time. I don't remember getting specific study guides. I know students now get very detailed study guides. I do not remember that. I remember pouring through the books and highlighting different notes and going through things and maybe looking at old tests, but I don't remember a specific study guide that we were given for any of that stuff. Maybe we were, but I don't remember that being something that we received at that point.
Now, as you said earlier, you were in a Catholic school, correct?
Correct.
During this Catholic school, have you ever been taught the religion of the school that certain stuff of the religion that you were in that made you uncomfortable?
No, because I'm the same religion as the school that I went to. So we had a class. So I'm looking right now. The first class that we had in our freshman year, we had two. One was church history. So that was kind of a history of the church throughout time. And then the other one was fundamentals of Catholicism. So you're learning about the different bases. And I went to a Catholic school for all my 8 years. So I didn't really, they just kind of went deeper into it. It wasn't the main focus, but we did have a class each day. So here, it would be similar to having one of your blocks as being a class where you learn about religion. And we don't really have anything like that here just because it's a public school. So it's kind of interesting, if you've never been in a religious school environment to think oh, they spend a part of their time talking about religion and learning about it. Well, you're at a school that focuses on that. So that's kind of the mission of the school. So would it be neat? It would be neat if they offered things like that here at Emmaus where they're taught, students are taught different religions, maybe not their own, but when you're learning about we have 3,000 people here that are probably who knows how many different religions are represented here at the school. I think it would be kind of neat to kind of have some way to learn all about those while you are kind of learning about all the other things as well too, just to learn about other people around you. But yeah, no, I didn't have any problems learning the religion. At that point, maybe after 8 years of doing it every day, I maybe wasn't super fired up about doing it, but the teachers that were there, we were taught by the people that were part of the order that the school was founded by. So they were all really nice and really believed in what they were teaching. So yeah, it was kind of cool. And then you got to learn, I believe one of them was later on was like world religions, and every like semester was a different class related to different topics. So it was kind of fun.
Now, besides like your morning break and recess, were there like any other classes that like allowed you to like review work, go over homework?
No, no, I'm looking at them now, and no, we didn't have that. And we actually didn't even have a gym class. Like I'm looking at it says physical education. One of the things that I thought was really cool about my school is that we didn't have like gym. But what they said was you had to either play a sport or participate in an activity that was like signed off. So like if you were like really into like karate as an example, or um, rock climbing, I don't know, something outside of the school, you could use that as your gym, and you didn't have a class that was gym. So like obviously for me, my basketball counted as the physical education requirement. So that was kind of nice to have that there as well. But I thought that was kind of neat. But no, there was nothing else built in like we have here with a Hornet homeroom. The morning meeting was short. It was probably like 15 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes. The recess was probably like 20, I want to say like 20, 25 minutes. So those were kind of short built in, but there was nothing else additionally built in to the day. I'm sure I had a study hall in there at some point, but I don't really remember that one pretty vividly as to what that was really entailed.
Now, when you were in high school at the school, were there any electives you could have chose from?
As a freshman, I don't think so, because I don't have any on my list. Spanish, I guess, but we were required to take a language, so Spanish wasn't an elective. I was told to take that one. Later on in this school, when you got into like junior, senior year, you could pick different electives in different classes. Without looking at them in front of me, I don't remember what a lot of them were, but not the same level of different kinds of things you could take here as a freshman. You have LCTI, you have your skills for living, you have all these other classes that you can participate in, where with there, it was very, very academic driven and very, very spelled out. Like I didn't have a whole lot of other choices.
Now, if you were to choose between high schools, would you rather go again another year a freshman in that Catholic school, or would you rather go a year here at Emmaus?
That's a good question. I like that one. I would probably now see. Here's the thing: do I have to pay what it would cost now to go, or can I? Do I? I don't have. Do I have to pay?
No.
I had to. Okay, so money is no object. So I would probably go back to the high school that I was in. I did enjoy my experience there. Emmaus has so much to offer, though. It's really a unique place because it's so big and there's so many different people, and the classes are really wide and varied. I don't know. I would like to go back and probably revisit my high school experience now and just kind of, think back on like the things that I could have taken more advantage of. Especially in a smaller school, you had a chance to participate in more things. Here, especially like looking at something like basketball. Like I know my son tried out for basketball. There were 71 people that tried out for basketball. My whole freshman class had 100 people in it. So like, thinking of like being involved in different activities and those kinds of things. I wouldn't say no to coming to Emmaus, like a school like Emmaus. It was just entirely different than what I grew up with. Like I said, my elementary school was really small. My high school was really small. I went to a humongous university though, so I guess I was tired of the small schools after that. But, yeah, if money's no object, I would go back and redo my high school experience now. But the tuition for that school that I went to has gone up probably 3 times the amount since I went there, in 1995, 96. So. It's really expensive now. So if I had to pay for it, obviously I'm coming to Emmaus. But since you told me I didn't have to worry about money, I would go back and relive that experience. And I'm sure like the experience of 2022 is way different than my experience in 1996. Like we had like we had computers in the library, but I didn't have like a Chromebook or a laptop. Like I don't even think laptops were even a thing really yet. So like, you're living in an entirely different world of what education was like. And I'm sure I follow them on Facebook. So I know that they've built new buildings and updated lots of cool stuff. So I would like to go back and see what being a freshman would be like there now.
Knowing the changes at the school, would you go back just to visit your old teachers?
Yeah, I don't think a lot of them are still teaching though. So I know that the ones that I follow on Facebook are no longer teaching at the school. And like I take a look. Actually, one kid that I graduated from high school with is now teaching English there. So I know that that's kind of cool that he went back and did that. He was a really awesome tennis player. I forget if he coaches tennis or not, but like it would be neat to go back to the school. And I know that they're doing some stuff. It's the 125th anniversary of the school this year. So maybe if I had the opportunity to go back and check it out, it would be neat to see. Um, I think everyone kind of itches sometimes to go back and check out their old school a little bit, but I think it would be unique. It would be cool to go back and see it and kind of experience what it's like now. I'm sure it's entirely different, but still cool.
If you were given the opportunity to work there a week of a complete budget that they give their employees, would you accept the terms? And if so, what class would you teach?
I would imagine that I make more money teaching here. So if I have to take a pay cut, it would be kind of hard. Would I go back and do it for a week? Sure, but like would I go back there and teach all the time? Like that's the only drawback with like private schools is they don't pay as much. So if I could take my salary, what it is now, and go teach there, yeah, I would do that. And what would I teach? I would love to teach a class that would blend like podcasting and journalism and TV and new media and those kinds of things. Like that would be something that I would love to go back and teach and figure out a school like that where they have the resources and they're willing to kind of, not that we don't have it here, but they're willing to like try new things and invest in different ways and different programs. I think it would be really neat to be able to have the freedom and the flexibility to design and teach and implement something like that. So that would be something that I think would be really cool to be able to experiencing and do. So yeah, I would go back and do that. I like being here in Emmaus too, but I think it's like that always that call, like if they would take you back, would you go back? Maybe. But I know I have a feeling that the salary here is way better. So I guess you said if the salaries were the same, would I go back? I guess I would. Be fun.
Guess if I were to add extra to it, I would add if they had favorite teachers and if they had favorite subjects.
Yeah, I think when I was in school, I did have some favorite teachers that we kind of talked a little bit about. Like, I liked my English classes because I wanted to write and be a journalism major, so I always liked that. But I have to admit, and hopefully no one hears this now, I hated reading the books. So I still, to this day, I'm not a huge, like, fiction book reader. And when you're in high school, a lot of the books are fiction. So I did not really do my best reading to read those. They used to have things called Cliff Notes, which are now like Spark Notes, but now they're just all over the internet. So I would do a lot of stuff related to not reading books. If I had to go back, I would reread them all, which, when you sit and think about it, it's like, oh, did you read things like The Great Gatsby? No. Like any of the classics, I kind of skipped out on all those because I didn't really like reading the fiction. Um, but yeah, like it's interesting. Like if you look back to it, the experience of being a ninth grader in 1995 versus the experience of 2022, it's, definitely differences, definitely challenges. But I think it's kind of one of those things where if you see, in the end, it's still school. You're still learning. You're still trying to better yourself for the next year and better yourself for what is in the future. So I think there's a huge, there's the opportunity there. So just because it's ninth grade from 1995 doesn't mean that it's still not applicable to today in 2022. It's the same, kids are basically the same. They just have different technology. So I think, it's interesting that you're kind of exploring the ninth grade. You wanted to flip it around on me here and do a little interview of me for the ninth grade experience. But, I think each person kind of comes to ninth grade with their own experiences. And then that's why I like doing the show. I like doing it because a lot of times kids forget about freshmen. They want to focus on the star senior, or they want to focus on somebody that's doing really good stuff. But then ninth grade is such a tough year for a lot of kids. And I think it's really important to be able to focus on the stuff they're going through and to help them get through the year because it's challenging. So it's something that we kind of always look at on the show and look at that, trying to figure out kids and their ninth grade experiences as well. So So yeah, it's fun. I think I told you when we first started this, I had never done my own episode about my own ninth grade experience. So you kind of asked me to answer some questions that I've never really answered on the podcast before. So I think it's kind of fun to be able to explore those. I had just recently done like a little bit of digging through my basement. So I had the report card on my phone before you even asked me that we were going to do. Like I found my yearbook. I have my old basketball shirts, pictures from my mother-son dance from high school. So lots of fun things that I was able to find specifically for my freshman year. So it was kind of fun. So it was nice reliving the glory days of 1995, 96 at Holy Ghost Prep in scenic Bensalem, Pennsylvania. Thanks a lot for joining us on today's episode of the Ninth Grade Experience podcast. If you liked what you heard today, please tell somebody, share it on social media, or just recommend us to another educator, a ninth grade parent, student. We're just trying to, increase our visibility here for the podcast.